This Day in Sports History. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. Hey, and welcome to This Day in Sports History. Thanks for stopping in. This dish is a member of the Sports History Network. You can find more stuff at sportshistorynetwork.com. This is your host, Steve White. It's August 31st, and on this day in 1969, boxer Rocky Marciano was killed in a plane crash. Marciano was a bulldog of a fighter. He had a chin seemingly made out of granite and the will to stay on his feet no matter how many punches landed on his face. He was 42-0, that included a knockout of Joe Louis before he finally got his title shot against Jersey Joe Walcott in September 1952. In that fight, Marciano was the pre-fight favorite, but faced a barrage of punches. Marciano was dropped to the canvas in the first round. His left eye was so swollen by the 7th that he was blind in that eye for the next 3 rounds, and after 12, Jersey Joe was ahead on all 3 judges' cards. Marciano ended the fight in the 13th, though, with his incredibly powerful overhand right punch that he called the Susie Q, knocking out the champ and giving Marciano the heavyweight title. He defended that title another 6 times before retiring in 1956 at the age of 32, with a record of 49-0 with 43 knockouts. His knockout-to-win percentage is 87.8%, which is second only to Deontay Wilder's 91.3% in the heavyweight division. Marciano retired to spend more time with his family. Well, on this day, he was flying with 2 friends in a single-engine Cessna 172. They took off from Chicago Midway, and they were on their way to Des Moines, Iowa, to give a speech and for a surprise 46th birthday celebration for Marciano. Glenn Belts was the pilot, and he was not a very experienced one, unfortunately. He only had 230 hours of flight time and only a fraction of that at night, and he did not have a rating to fly instrument only. The plane ran into some rough weather, and Belts attempted to divert and land at a municipal airport in Newton, Iowa. Belts radioed the local tower for landing instructions, but no other communication was ever received. The plane crashed about a mile short of the airport, killing all 3 aboard. Colleen Swartz saw the plane flying low over her house, and she told investigators later that the engine was not running, and when she heard a loud crash several seconds later, well, she knew exactly what had happened. When rescue crews arrived on the scene, they found Belts and Frank Farrell. Both men had been ejected from the plane. Marciano was still in the wreckage. NTSB investigators ruled that Belts was trying to fly visually, though weather and darkness prevented it, and became disoriented in the final moments. Marciano, who had planned on returning home to his wife the next day to celebrate his birthday with her, was 45. On this day in 1972, the 2 pre-race favorites to win the men's 100-meter dash in the Munich Olympics were disqualified. But it wasn't for what they did on the track. Instead, they weren't even close to the track. Heading into the Olympic Games, American sprinters Ray Robinson and Ed Hart were expected to be the ones contending for gold and silver in the 100 meters. Both Hart and Robinson shared the world record in the 100-meter with a time of 9.9 seconds. It seems ironic that the men who competed in an event where the watch is very important and precise that it would be a mix-up in time that led to their disqualification. Robinson, Hart, and their sprint coach Stan Wright were getting pre-race massages in the ABC broadcast area, and they were watching what they thought were replays of the morning qualifying races. Instead, they soon found out that they were watching live coverage of the quarterfinal heats that Robinson and Hart were supposed to be competing in. They rushed to the stadium, arriving before the conclusion of the heats, and then they petitioned the officials to allow them to run in another heat. But their appeal was denied. Since they had missed the heat that they were assigned to run in, they were disqualified. The schedule for the afternoon heat races had been altered 2 days before, pushing them ahead of the 10,000-meter races. The coach, Wright, had been working off of an old schedule and thought that they had plenty of time to get to the stadium. There was blame passed around. The IAAF was blamed for not communicating the change more clearly. But mostly, Wright was blamed for ultimately not knowing the time that his athletes needed to be at the track. This episode is brought to you by Stirling Roastery. For several months you've heard me talking about the great products and scents offered by the Stirling Soap Company. And while there may not seem to be any correlation between soap and coffee, what is similar is the same care and attention to detail in delivering great products to their customers. Stirling Roastery will ship great-tasting beans or ground coffee, for whatever coffee-making process you prefer, right to your door. I gave their breakfast blend a try recently, and I can tell you, it was a great way to get my day kick-started with this smooth, medium blend. And just like their soaps, they have a variety to choose from. Give Stirling Roastery a try at stirlingsoap.com. This episode is brought to you in part by McFarland Books and their new release, Building the Milwaukee Bucks by Jordan Tresky.
What does it take to build an NBA champion from scratch? Building the Milwaukee Bucks takes you behind the scenes, boardrooms, locker rooms, and courtside to see how Milwaukee went from no team to raising the championship trophy in just 3 years. With legends like Kareem, Oscar, Wayne Embry, Larry Costello, and much more leading the charge. This is the story every basketball fan should know. Get your copy of Building the Milwaukee Bucks at your favorite bookstore.
On this day in 1937, Detroit Tiger rookie Rudy York hit a pair of home runs, giving him 18 for the month. That broke Babe Ruth's record of 17 home runs in a calendar month from 10 years before. The Tigers played 30 games during the month of August in 1937. York had 113 at-bats, he picked up 41 hits, and drove in 50 runs. His record would stand for 51 years until Chicago Cub Sammy Sosa hit 20 in 1998. York nearly equaled his feat in August 1943, but he came up one shy. And on this day in 1990, Ken Griffey Sr. and his son, Ken Griffey Jr., became the first father-son duo to play together in the same game. Pops had actually worked as Junior's agent 3 years before, negotiating the contract for his then 17-year-old kid to play in Seattle. He didn't really expect to be playing with him 3 years later. The Mariners were playing the Kansas City Royals in the Kingdome on this night, and in the top of the first, they jogged together to the outfield. Senior in left, Junior in center. Cincinnati had just released the older Griffey, and the Mariners were pretty insistent that the move to bring him to Seattle was not some sort of publicity stunt. Pops still showed that he could play, despite being 40, in the league for 18 years, and a member of the Big Red Machine back in the 70s. He picked up a single in the bottom of the first, winning a bet with his kid that he'd be the first to pick up a hit. He then showcased his arm when he caught Bo Jackson rounding second base a bit too much, firing a rocket to catch Jackson before he could retreat. And that drew a standing ovation from the appreciative Kingdome crowd. He hit .377 in the 21 games he played for the Mariners that season, and he came back to play another 30 games in 1991 before retiring. Time now for today's fun fact that has absolutely zero to do with sports. Bono, the lead singer of U2, once paid for a first-class ticket on a flight from London to Paris to fly a hat that he had mistakenly left behind. That's all I've got for you today. I appreciate the download and the listen. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, and then let's get together every day and talk about what happened on this day in sports history. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.